Welcome to Mystics and Mischief.
All things spooky and current.
I'm your host, Barbara.
And I'm your host, Gloria.
Don't forget to like, comment, and follow.
So you can join in the mischief too.
Okay, now we're recording. Yeah, did you what?
Okay, so I've been so fucked in the head with the thought of having to have this conversation about like the spiritual connection between relationships and love and like what we learned and all this stuff. I had to have an emergency meeting with my therapist. Like, that's how much this topic, I'm not like, you're laughing. It's not funny. It's not funny. I was crying for 2 days straight, thinking about my past trauma and relationships and what certain people
Gloria.
mean to me and these realizations that I was trying not to deal with. And I was like, holy fuck, why did I say, let's do this? This was my idea. I was like, holy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh my God. Oh no, it's
I
all
don't know
right.
what
I
this
mean,
one's gonna do. Should we do
oh
this
my
one
God.
now?
Yeah, no, let's do it. I always say it don't matter if you're afraid, you gotta do it anyways, right? Like, I think just the topic of love is so terrifying to me, that having to be open and
Yeah,
honest and um just completely yourself with somebody is scary, especially
yeah,
like, my past relationships. So, you know, they weren't always safe. And so just I think I've kept myself safe by not opening up in my last relationship. Or, I fought against it, right? It was this
yeah,
battle in myself of wanting to show that I loved this person and just not knowing how to let go of my my past trauma. So it just
yeah.
definitely something I still want to talk about. But why don't you talk about yours for a while?
Yeah, we'll talk about
Welcome back to me.
yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about my experience, the issue I had with one of the ex-psychologist I was talking to. I'm not sure how much I'm going to disclose, but I mean, really, there is kind of a lot. So basically, um, I started seeing this psychologist as a pain psychologist, separate from my therapist. And so I was seeing the therapist for depression, anxiety, things that were associated with um, my disability, my illness, chronic illness. And in the process of speaking with that therapist, I ended up moving back to NorCal because my parents were supposed to move out here in the Midwest. And so while I was there, I a lot came back mentally and emotionally. I hate that house that my parents are in. Too much bad stuff happened there. And um another family member was going through some hard stuff, and that's when I think I started. So I was still seeing therapists through, actually my therapist at the time ended up going away on leave, and so for a moment it was just me and the pain psychologist, and then it was going to end up with the pain psychologist, and I was like, I don't have anyone to talk to. um and he said he would, stick with me since my regular therapist was out. And it
I'm
was
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but your screen is like really dark. Can you turn a light on? Like
really
it's hard
dark.
to see you. Yeah. Just that way that's
I don't
better.
want my
You can
closet
see
to be
your
shown.
feet.
I was speaking with this pain psychologist, and I think that's when I really started to have feelings for him. It might have started before I left, but I didn't really recognize it. But while I was there, I recognized I was having feelings, and I was like, God, I was starting to feel bad. I was like, I shouldn't feel bad. I mean, this has got to be normal. And so I did a little research online, and I found out, yes, it is. It is quite normal, called transference, where the client may end up developing feelings or emotions towards um, the therapist, psychologist, whoever, and that you should be able to hopefully feel comfortable enough with that individual to speak about it, to get work through it, because the whole point of the transference is, I wish I can find the video. The doctor explained it really well. Basically, what I had been missing from my previous relationships and my marriage, what I didn't get, in terms of respect or care, somebody with an empathetic ear to listen to me, all of that, whatever. And it could be different for other people, kindness, that kind of thing. Patience, whatever I didn't get from those, unknowingly, I'm putting onto this individual because they are me, giving me that, but they're hopefully a good or therapist. They should be kind and respectful of this, right? They're supposed to be. Um, and he was. So, um, learning about, okay, that's the transference. That's where it's coming from. And this is before I even told him. I started to think, okay, well, if I'm projecting it on to him and it's coming from previous relationships. So then I worked backwards from my last boyfriends, the way I was acting, and went the way all the way back to my marriage. And then and this was all happening like this in my head. And it's what I called the epiphany. Everything just unlocked. Um, when I got to my ex-marriage with my ex-husband, I started thinking, well, why was I with him? What was I missing from him? Why was I with him? And then it just my brain kept going back, unlocking everything that had to do with, um, how I was raised, how my parents acted, all of that down to and then I started to go back to my relationship with my parents and how I grew up, all the way back down to when I was young and experiencing trauma. And, when you first start to have these memories that you actually remember that far back. And so everything, so much unlocked, basically. I could explain and see why I am the way I am, why I feel and believe the way I do, why I ended up with every guy that I did, including my ex-husband, why I behaved this way, that way. The way I behaved probably was not appropriate. Um, so much so that, and additional trauma from my childhood, that it basically gave me PTSD. Um, and I don't know what it's like for other people with PTSD, or if it's similar that they have this unlocking and just, but I did not know who I was anymore. I was freaking out because I really didn't know who I am still trying to figure out. I still kind of don't know it, because the way I saw myself as a certain type of strength of a person, then only thought that of myself because of certain things that I've been through my life or gotten through. But not realizing then that I went through those because this is how I was raised. This is how I behaved. It's all connected. It was all connected, but it all came to light. Um, Especially the trauma as a child, that there was a lot more that came unlocked in my head about that. So it was really difficult. And I messaged knowing that I had an online session at the time with the pain psychologist, but also knowing that my regular therapist is going to be coming back. I messaged them both. I wrote this epiphany out, what happened, why, and I'm just not there's a lot going on, because I didn't want to go into a regular pain, psychologist appointment and me being completely effed up, I had to give him some because I was not gonna be me. Everything changed at that moment. So I wrote it to him um, and then when the time came for our next online appointment, um, I really valued what he did because normally the sessions would be like 40 minutes to maybe 45, an hour at the most. He ended up staying with me. He never tried to push me or kick me off. Um, Stayed with me on the appointment for an hour and a half. And the first thing that he wanted to, I could tell that he was, I don't know, he was a little nervous or I don't know what he was, but um, I don't know if anybody has ever had transference with him. I don't know. But he's like, I want to, he thanked me for sharing that with him. And what he's like, I want to talk about, the first transference in your ex-husband. And I told him, this is what we're going to talk about. Because I basically in that letter admitted, I had feelings come up, but I learned this is what it's called, transference, blah, blah, blah. So I explained it to him. I started to have these feelings and I learned what it means. So I understand that, this is the things I was missing from my ex. And I told him how everything, pretty much what the epiphany said, everything just unlocked. And we went from there. Um, I mean, prior to him, the regular therapist that was on leave, I'm not going to speak ill about her, but I had started seeing her years ago and I just didn't feel like a good fit. Um, because I can never do just over the phone, probably because I have to read
Mhm.
people
Yeah.
and to know if they're really listening and a lot of times I felt like it was just a broken record. It wasn't really helping me any. I need more talk, you know, one-on-one talk and really getting into it. And that wasn't really her style. And so I had left, and I think at that time, they didn't have that many available female therapists. So I hadn't seen anyone for a while. Um, and the last time I ever had a therapist that I really felt comfortable with and open up to was when I was 13, 16, I'm not sure. When I first initially remembered this trauma from my childhood, which I thought I remembered everything. I didn't, but I just remembered a little bit. Um, but that ended really badly because one time my parents, it was going to be like a thing where my parents are there with the therapy and she just, mind you, I'm a teenager and I had this the first, she was the first person I've ever opened up to that, ever like a therapist or anything like that. And I had seen her already a few times, but this time, for whatever reason, well, I do know the reason, she just went off on me in front of my parents. Um, I mean, really, like, you know, she just was not in her right headspace. It was completely, I feel, I was really shocked. My parents were shocked and they were upset, and we ended up leaving. And this is before everybody had cell phones. Well, we did. My dad had the cell phone. He had the big pack, Velcro pack that you hook into your car. It's like this huge, but that was only for emergencies. So,
You're
um,
making us look really old, Barbara.
sorry, but,
Damn.
um, uh, where was I going? Oh, we lived about an hour and a half away at the time. And so by the time we got home, we had an actual answering machine. And she had already left some messages. And my parents called her and she apologized profusely, trying to get me to go back. Basically, she had admitted that she was going through a really hard time in her own life. And she brought it into the workplace and just put it out on me. Um, to which I was like, "Fuck no, I'm never going back." Right? So that was really hurtful and really horrible. So to go from that when I was a teenager to this therapist, female therapist that I just didn't feel the connection with, and then I left. God, it'd been forever. And then I went back to her because I was like, "You know what? I might as well just I know what she's gonna be like, but at least I'll be able to just get things out. I'm just gonna to basically vent. I'm not gonna expect her to actually
Mhm.
help me in any." So that's what I was going back for, and it's nothing against her. I'm sure she's helped lots of people, but I for me, the only way it worked was to basically just use her to vent, and that was helping me some, but with this pain psychologist, he listened. And I'm gonna try and speak about him in terms of prior to this hell. Um, I felt I bonded with him really easy and connected with him really easily, like, it was really super easy for me to trust him, and I felt I could fully trust him. He made me feel comfortable, he made me feel safe. And he really, and like I said, I need to see people to read them. And he really listened with empathy. Like he was, you know, concerned and, upset at hearing certain things, but, really trying to think about it to how he can help me deal with it. And so when I was over there, I'm having online sessions with him. And this is also comes around the time when the current administration was, doing away with anything that made sense, in terms of the workforce, and where, people are going to return to work and to the physical workplace and stop working from home and da 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 da. And I was scared and worried because I was like, I can't stop talking. I especially now can't stop talking to him with everything with the PTSD, with everything that unlocked. I was like, I just can't. And then my therapist came back, and he was telling me, because he's technically the pain psychologist, she's the therapist, is that we talked about the different types of therapy that she was going to assist me with in terms of the PTSD, but that I still, it's confusing me, but I couldn't have two certain kinds of therapies at the same time. And I was really worried. I was like, I know why I go to her, and I know she's going to help me with a certain therapy with PTSD, but I know I'm already, I don't know what she has set up, but I can't stop talking to him. Like, I really need him right now. And I think, you know, I realized I'm like, God, I've been having sessions with him for a really long time now. Um, and I think you do get to kind of know somebody, pick up on, you speak with somebody enough, it's going to happen. So I felt like, I could tell, like, God, he really cares about who he's helping, because I was so worried. I'm like, oh my God, it's you're gonna have to leave. Are you gonna have to leave? And like I was freaking out, why can't, why do I have to stop this and stop talking to you? And I was too confused. Anyways, I'm still confused. And I thought that that was it. I wasn't gonna be able to talk to him anymore while I have therapy with the other one for the PTSD. And the end of one of our sessions, I'm just sitting there and I'm like trying to process it. And it's just, I'm trying not to think of the hell now. Like, how can I word this? I guess I wasn't hiding it very well, but, he he could tell, when I'm feeling one way, even if I think I'm trying to hide it. You know what I mean? And it's, "What's going on? What are you thinking? Because you look really sad right now." And I said, "Well, I am. I am because you're saying I can't talk to you while I do that. It's like, why can't I have you both?" And he was like, You can have us both." He's like, "You can have us both. We just can't do this while, doing that." I don't know what he was talking about, but I was like, "Okay." All I heard is I can keep talking to him. So that made me feel a lot better. And so I continued to have sessions with him while I was doing the PTSD therapy with her, which did not take long. I don't think it took too long for me to figure out that that wasn't going to work with her. Um, it was all worksheets, write down your feelings of this. If this is what you would feel, come up with some other words that you would think of, and then how do you feel about that? That kind of thing. Fill out the paper form, right? And I tried to tell her before, I was like, tell me what answers you want and I'll put it on there. I don't know if this is going to work, but if you want all the answers to all of this, I can just write them down right now. Doesn't mean it applies. It just means I know what answers you're looking for. So in other words, worksheets don't fucking work for me. don't ask me to fill out a fucking worksheet. It's not going to work for me. Um, and so I don't know. I was trying to do it with her and she was like, "Well, we'll give it a chance, give it some time, okay, fine." And so one day it was like, I didn't know what to put. And I was like, "Well, I kind of feel like it was this." And she's like, "Okay. And how do you feel about that now? Is that how you really feel?" And I was like, "No." She'd be like, "Why'd you put it there on the paper then?" Because then I'd have nothing to put in there. She's like, "Well, I don't want you to lie." And I was like, "Well, I have nothing to put in there. Just because you asked me to come up with some different words of how I can feel for myself does not mean, congratulations, you cured me. I'm going to feel different about myself." And I was like, "Okay." She's like, "Well, I want you to try and do that exercise again, but no, don't lie." And I was like, "Okay." And so the next appointment I had with her, it was blank. It was completely blank. And she's like, "Well, did you get a chance to fill it?" I was like, "Well, no, I just didn't have anything to put in there because you told me not to lie." And it was like, "Well, I don't want you to lie, but I want you to fill it out." Do you not? And I'm thinking, do you not hear yourself? Like that, because then it was just came back like full circle. I was like, what answers do you want? I will give them to you so you can get off this damn worksheet. You don't want me to lie, but you want me to come up with something. So in other words, you're telling me that I have to force myself to just change my emotions. That's bullshit. I can't do that. I said, then I can't do it because I'm not going to lie. I agree. It's not good to lie about it. Yet I don't feel any of this. Doesn't matter if I can come up with a gazillion different ways of being more positive, and it was at that time that it was kind of worrying about if the pain psychologist, if he's going to end up having to leave because, for whatever reason, because he worked from home the whole time, and if he can't, what am I going to do if I, lose him? And at the same time, she's like, "Well, there are other types of therapies," and she's naming them off, including one. I don't remember how she worded it. She used temporal, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, and I don't know why, but it just clicked with me what she was saying. I was like, "So you mean electric shock therapy? Is that what you're talking?" She said something about the temporal. The way she worded it, I guess my schooling, medical assisting kind of connected everything. And I was like, "So electric shock?" Really? I was like, "I'm not doing that." I knew somebody that had that done, and um, you can lose memories, even good ones. And this one, like, she did lose some good memories. She didn't lose everything, but she lost a lot of good memories. And I was like, "I'm not doing that, especially with my fibro. What the no?" And so I couldn't do that. And then things were still getting worse and worse when I was back there. So I was really leaning on him. Like, I felt like the way I describe it is I felt like I was drowning in this raging river. And the only thing I had to keep my head out of the water was him. He was the only one, being like, "I'm not gonna let you drown. I got you." Even though I wanted to just go with the river a lot of times and just let it take me and drown me. I continued to let him hold on and not let me go. I didn't want to don't let go, you know? Um, and then eventually, the plans changed and my parents were gonna move here. And then it was like, well, then I gotta get back. I gotta get out of here. This is not good for me here. And it's ruining relationships, me being there. I was like, I have to get back to the Midwest as soon as
So
possible.
all that
So
stuff that
I,
was happening while you were still in California? So this is all
yeah,
before you came back? Okay. Just making sure I understood.
yes.
Okay.
Basically, yeah, I got feelings because I could recognize that when he's really listening and, that kind of thing. And because again, the transference, I understand that, and do I think my feelings for him were genuine? Um, like what you're reading and everything. Yeah, I do. But in terms of what I have to say about love is that itself has a wide spectrum, I think. We're humans. Um, it doesn't necessarily mean this or that. You know what I mean? There's different types. I love my neighbor. You know what I mean? So yes, I think my feelings were genuine. Um, not necessarily in a romantic way, but just in a way of I think he's the only male that probably ever treated me right then. And I'm hanging on to that because again, I'm still in that fucking river. And so feeling that way, but we're still keeping it checked. Like I could still talk with him. I raced back to get over here um, because I had an appointment coming up with him. So it was a matter of getting out here, getting set up, getting my internet, all that, which I did. Um, and by the time I got here, same day I arrived in town, got my apartment, and had my internet scheduled and everything. I think it was the very next day I had my online appointment with him. What?
Oh, okay, I said before all that messed up, I was asking if you were in an okay headspace to have the conversation because you seem to be getting like mixed up and lost in the story. And so I wanted to
I
make sure you
am,
were
but
mentally okay.
I am probably the best it's gonna be at this point. I'm okay though. It's just when I
Okay.
get into the details, it's a little jumbled because it is, hard for me to not think about where I'm at now. Basically, I was about to have another session with him, first session I was gonna have with him when I got back here to the Midwest. But I was gonna say prior to that though, it was, the concern if with the a-hole Trump administration, what was going on with that, if he was going to have to leave the VA. And I had been asking him about that through online correspondence, and at one point he's like, I understand. He's like, don't worry, as soon as I know, you'll know. And so that was a while before I left. And so I get back and I get online. I'm going to have my session with him. And this time was, I could tell was different. When he came online, he had his dogs with him, which he had never even mentioned or talked about him before. I was usually Daisy. The dog would always know when I was having a session with him, and it was going to be emotional because she'd come right over. And so she was usually always present with my sessions with him. And he always acted like, he likes dogs. So I knew he probably had some dogs. But this time he had, I think, 3 dogs with him, surrounding him. And at first I was kind of skeptical, like, the dogs give comfort. Why does he have his dogs with him? Is something happening? Like, did something happen? I thought maybe if something really bad happened and he's having them as support. Um, and so one of the first things he ends up saying was, I want to make sure we first he asked, "Did so and so, my regular therapist, talk to you at all about uh, me wanting to set aside some time on this point, whatever, to discuss any something?" I think it was poor. I can't remember exact wording, but I was like, "No, she didn't mention anything." And he's like, "Okay, because I want to make sure we set aside some time to talk about, so there's time to process, and talk about me not working for the VA anymore." Um, and that took me back. I was like, "What the, like that session we were in was going to be our last." So it was just sprung on me. Um, and I couldn't process it. Yeah. Um, there was a lot of silence in that last one. And then towards the end, he was like wanting to come up, you know, like with certain things. Well, what's, something you can do when you're getting stressed out? One thing he always pointed out was grab the dogs, hold the dogs, um, get Daisy and looking back, I realize there's no way I could have processed that with everything I was going through. I could not comprehend. But during that, towards the end, he was like, "So what are some things that, you could do, some activities, something you can do when you're feeling like you're losing it, that kind of thing." And I was like, honestly, I was like, talking to you. He's like, "Okay." And he's writing, he's like, "Okay, talking to someone." And I was like, "No, not just someone, talking to you. Not talking to someone, talking to you. Makes me feel better." Because remember, he's the one that I'm holding on to out of that fucking river. And he basically is telling me he's gonna let go. And so he says he just kept repeating, he can't tell me anything. He can't tell me where he's going. And at one point, I think I asked, um, yeah, I asked, well, can my care continue? What can I still continue my care with you? I understand you're leaving, but there's care in the community, which for listeners who don't know, care in the community for veterans is when we need care and we can't get anything close by us or within the VA, they'll contract with someone who um, can file to the VA, so that we can see them. In other words, somebody that's
Mhm.
outside of the government VA. And so I asked him about that, and he seemed flustered because like he couldn't say anything, and I didn't understand that. Um, and he's like, "It depends on where I'm going, takes your insurance, and so first she told me, "When I know, you'll know." And that was quite a ways. I think that was a couple months prior to me even leaving. Um, so I'm getting the impression that, this is very last minute, but he's still not telling me anything. And they're like, "Why?" Um, and he wouldn't, which was really hard to deal with. Like, I don't understand. You're telling me you're gonna let go, but you can't tell me why. And so, whatnot, our session ended, and I had not, because everything was so crazy with me with PTSD that was new to me, all of this shit. Even before that, with the stress of my chronic illness and the pain I was dealing with, I had not cried in probably like 3 years, 2 or 3 years. The moment I got offline with him, I bawled my eyes out. I just bawled my eyes out because I couldn't believe I was like, he's gone. He let go, you know, take me down the fucking river. Okay. You know, I couldn't fathom it. And I tried to be civil about it. I think it was next day, I don't know when, but over the course of the week, that wasn't his last day. That was supposed to be, I guess, his last day or whatnot, but, he was still there for some administrative, I guess, like, we I don't know. But at one point, I had sent him correspondence, "Thank you for everything, da 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 da," and left it at that. He was like, "Thank you for the kind words," and then it got to a point where I was like, "What the fuck?" "I don't understand," "I can't take this," and why wasn't I told and or warned or, I was a mess again. I was a mess. Like, let's just add to the mess and the PTSD, and let's just add to all that shit. Um, and so I had messaged him, and I was like, didn't even know he was still there. I was like, "I don't know if you're still here or if you're already gone. It's too late, but da da da. I can't do this. I'm not okay with this. This just sucks." And blah, blah, blah. And he was like, "You know what?" He did respond. Almost right, but he's like, "I have some time. Can you meet in like half hour?" And then it was like bad timing because I had another appointment, I think, or whatnot. And I was like, "Not, I can, but I only have 20 minutes." So, and that was just a phone appointment. And so he got on the phone with me and he tried to, there's a couple of referrals, people that I would suggest that I want you to, would refer that maybe you speak. And I was like, "No, I'm not talking to him." He was going to give me a couple of names. And I was like, "No, it's not going to happen." Because my experience with the therapist and how I am, and I told him, he was quiet a lot of the time, but I was like, as well as I do that statistically for a patient to find somebody that they bond or mesh with that and trust that much that it's, that well is highly unlikely, and he knew that that's what he was to me at that point, it's like, that's not going to happen. Um, and it got to the point where I could hear, his frustration. And I don't know if it was at me or the situation, but, I was like, "This sucks," and I could tell, I did not want to let him go. And I I don't know where this video is going to go, so I don't want to get him in trouble or anything, but um, I had the impression, gave me the impression that it would not be possible for him to go. He had to leave the VA because it wouldn't be possible for him to go to the physical VA to work because he lives too far away, you know, um, which I can understand that. Um, but it was just, it was left. It was done. And honestly, I couldn't even fathom what was going on for a good few weeks because I was just like corresponding and it was like when I knew his that was his actual last day and there's nothing I could do about it. And then, being back here trying to get things together and then I'm like, where is he working? You know, where's he working? You go online, you do a little searching. um, and I find out he is co-owner of his own practice. He has a practice that he co-owns with his spouse, and, I don't know if it's just her and him or others, but he has his own, which takes my insurance, but he didn't say any of that. And then for the longest time, I'm thinking, "Screw the VA here," they caused me to lose that psychologist, um, to the point where I actually went to an appointment with a female therapist or wrote her. Actually, I think I wrote her, and I was a couple of times, I was like, "I don't understand how you guys don't know what happened. Nobody's telling me what happened. Nobody told me why this happened, why it happened the way it did." you guys are saying you have no answers, and I don't believe you, to where I guess the head nurse, the the mental health department had to call me and she was like, and then it was that point she gave me the impression with the way she was talking, like, her tone was basically she insinuated he left on his own accord and we don't know why, but he decided to leave. And I'm like, so then, I'm thinking, after a while, I'm thinking, how long did he know that he was going to leave? Because he did tell me at one point, when I know you'll know, but he didn't tell me until the day of our last session. And so it's like, did he lie about that? Did he know if he left on his own accord? He had to have known before. So how long did he know? And he didn't tell me,
Well,
you know?
sometimes people
Um,
make rash decisions, and maybe he wasn't sure he was going to leave until the last minute.
but then him knowing my situation, I would have been like, I can't leave her like this, we'll give it this time.
But if he was to
Something.
leave something rashly, and this is just me thinking, if he was to leave something rashly, then that means he would have possibly had his own situation happening, and maybe he wasn't able to think of his patients at the time, you know? Self-preservation's a thing,
I don't
sometimes we
know.
have to do what's
I don't
best
know.
for
And that's the
us.
thing. That's the thing, though. If there was something personal, he could have said something. There's something personal, but why it has to end this way, which I don't want it to end this way, but I don't have a choice. Some kind of explanation. I'm not asking for his juicy details of his life. I'm asking for a simple explanation, and I never got one. He never gave me one. No reasoning. Um, and then I reach out to him at this practice and his own practice, and I'm pretty sure it was going to the right place, and I'm thinking, oh my god, he's ignoring me. And then finally at one point he responded, I can't see you because I'm not your current therapist, you need to reach out to them. And so now I know he's getting my emails and he's reading them, and I'm like, I don't understand, why can't I have a fucking reason? Like, I don't know if he understands how hurtful it was the way it left, knowing now that he just left. He couldn't even give me a reason, can't even tell me why, all of this. And I do realize, I'm like, yeah, I do care about him. How can you not? Of course I'm gonna care. I don't think there's anything wrong with me caring about him. I don't think there's anything wrong with a therapist or a psychologist, whoever, caring about their clients. Shit, I would like to think that that's part of the reason they decided to get into the field that they did, because they care about fucking people. How can you say, people that are getting into this profession because they want to generally help people, and then tell them it's wrong for them to care to a certain point, you know? Then you might as well just only allow assholes to take that fucking career position. We're fucking human. And like I was saying earlier, to me, love is on a wide spectrum. There's different kind, of caring about people. So if there was anything that he was maybe feeling too much for a patient, and like not necessarily romantic or anything like that, but getting too emotionally involved per their career says they're not supposed to care so much, which I think is just stupid, then why you can't, I'm sorry. I see that you can't get into certain fucking careers without caring about the people you're supposed to be fucking helping. Um, so if that was the problem, I still don't see what, some kind of answer. For listeners, I was given none. This was the person that I was allowing to keep my head above water. I could have just let go of him, but I didn't, because he was the only thing that was giving me a small part that wanted to not let go and just drown. Um, at this point, yeah, I have suicidal tendencies. I mean, I have fucking PTSD is a bitch. Um, And mind you, I'm still a fucking mess at that point. I'm still a mess. So, but no reason. And I do feel like we bonded. Like, I feel like, I can tell when he's really listening. And I can tell when he's seriously thinking about something because as he's listening, he's intently, seriously typing, whatever. Um, he can tell when I'm getting sick before I did. That was
How
funny.
long
I don't
did
know if
you
I told
see
him about
him?
that, but a year,
Okay.
which is from what I can gather, a lot longer than he normally would have. Again, as the pain psychologist, but because mine was gone, had more time. And then it became a point of once that epiphany happened of nope, I need you to stick and fucking stick around. Um, so I don't know. I still suspect if something was said or there's stuff that I don't know, that if maybe he was hanging on during that therapy when he wasn't supposed to, I don't know. Because when I told her, I'm not going to do any of that, and I had to tell her I have to take a break from that because it's not working. And I don't know if something happened. I don't know. Was he threatened or was it really all him? And if it was really all him, how can you do that and not give me any reason? How can you just cut it off like that? And I swear it was like he already knew. He knew about the trauma I had, all of it. And I did tell him, and he still is the same one that knows more about me than anybody else. He knows more about what I've been through than anybody else. And he did know about the psychologist that I saw when I was young that went off on me. And that's why I had not, for the longest time in like 20, 30 years, seen a therapist. To have him do that, it wasn't like a knife and a dagger in the back. It was a big fucking sword right from the front in my heart and in the back, and then just keep fucking stabbing me while I'm letting go, rushing down the fucking river, waiting to drown. But my ass keeps fucking floating. I'm like trying to swim to the fucking bottom, get a heavy rock, something. Just fucking leave me at the bottom. And so I can't leave it at that. Now I'm losing my fucking mind. And so I would, I would email him a lot. And I tried not to. And then I tried to use it as a journal, basically. But no, he only responded one other time. And it was, I'm sorry to read this, I'm sorry to hear this. And if you can't speak with so-and-so who was my female therapist I was seeing, then reach out, to the head of the department. They'll be able to help you best with how to deal with this. And it was like, you got to be fucking joking. Like, I'm just looking for, at this point now, and now at the time of making this video, I think it's been 3.5 months. And I did send him quite a lot. And I even called their line and left him a voicemail, till I was persistent to the point that at first he wasn't blocking me, and now I'm blocked. Now I'm
On the
blocked.
phone or
But it
on the
upsets me even
email?
more. Yeah, on the phone, probably on the email too. Um,
So
really, I thought he was this genuine person that really did care, and he was going to be able to help me. He was the only one that made me believe that help might actually work. And he just abruptly fucking let me go. And it's like I felt like he didn't really give a shit, and all that hurt so much. I just cannot, and I still can't comprehend why, no, I know we had our reading and everything, but um not giving me any reason with my state of mind and everything that I was going through, not giving me any reason. How, and I still have a problem with it. Like, how can you as a professional do that to a patient? And at this point, and I think he blocked me maybe like a week and a half ago. But up until then, you had 3 months, 3.5 months to give me a reason or to help me get closure. And at this point, I'm looking for
Out of
that fucking closure or
out of
to
all
get
those
past it.
times that
Just
you
give me
tried
that.
to reach out to them or to him, did you ever ask him specifically for a reason?
I can't remember. I think I did on the last one. I think I did on the last one that where I wasn't blocked that I left, but that's all I'm trying or at this point, I need that closure. If I am gonna have any chance of moving on, I need that closure. That's all I'm fucking asking for at this point. And at this point, yeah, I'd send different messages. I'm pissed off, this, why, that's all I want because the fact that he refuses to give that to me hurts so bad. It just keeps hurting. And I know we talked and we did the reading and there's reasons why sometimes the psychologist might have to make that decision to cut everything off, but I think that's bullshit in terms of legally. You know what I mean? Like there has to be some tweaking to what's appropriate for a psychologist to do or not do for them to leave a patient like this, even though it might be appropriate under these circumstances. You know what? Not necessarily for every single fucking patient. And for me, it sure as hell isn't. I'm a Scorpio. If I haven't said that before, I need my answers or I will blame
Okay, I'm
me.
gonna recap your whole story just so that the audience, just to make sure I'm right and that the audience is understanding everything that's happening. You've been seeing this pain psychologist for about a year. You ended up leaving the state you're in to go to California to deal with some matters, and during that time that you were gone, you realized that you had feelings for um this person. And
Mhm.
while you were in the other state, while you're in California, you let him know that you did have feelings for him. And you understand that it is transference. And for people who don't know what that is, that's when you um, have feelings towards your therapist or psychologist because they're the ones who are helping you work through your emotional state at the time. And so you use that as a relationship type. From there,
Well,
you
so
come
the
back.
so the listeners understand because I don't want it to be misunderstood that the patient that happens because not just they're having feelings as a relationship, but right because they're doing that because at that point they have a trusting relationship and good fit with that therapist or psychologist that they can be open with that they end up taking what they were missing from a previous relationships, whether romantic or familial, that they missed in terms of like maybe respect or careful listening or just empathy. And they project that onto the therapist that they're seeking with. Yes.
Okay. Right. You let him know that before you came back. And also while you were in California, you had this sudden realization, this epiphany of everything that you've gone through throughout your life and how all those things are intertwined into who you are today. And that is something that you've been struggling with and have PTSD with. Okay. So I already forgot where I was then. Okay, hold on. Okay, you came back to the state you're currently in, and once you came back, he saw you one more time and then abruptly ended your guys' working relationship, correct?
In that last session, yeah, was it.
Okay. Right. So did you guys have any other than that one time, did you guys have any face-to-face conversations about your feelings for him? Or was it just that one session?
Just that one session in which I disclosed, the epiphany and how the PTSD was unlocked, all of that.
Okay.
Just that one time.
But he knew it, he had prior knowledge because you had written out that letter to both your therapist and to him.
Right.
Okay. I
So,
I
and
wonder
that's
if
why I wanted.
I wonder if both
Hmm.
of them had a discussion about that letter, because he asked you if you had talked to her, correct? And so I wonder if they had,
Yeah.
a oh, the other person's a him too?
No, wait, you cut out there. What was it?
Oh, I said that, you had sent the letter to both your therapist, which is a female, and then to him, and
Mhm.
he had mentioned to you, or he had asked you on your last appointment if you had spoken with her, correct?
Yeah. So later on, it didn't hit me until, a while later that to me, that insinuated that maybe she knew well before that he was
That they
also
had had a
leaving.
conversation prior. I wonder if they both thought it was in the best interest of you as a patient for him no longer to serve you. Because if they would have had a conversation about your health, I'm not saying it would have been the right
And if that's
decision,
the
but
case, and if that's the case, then they both lied to me because I asked her about that. I asked her if she knew. And their whole thing always was on her end, or the head nurse was, they have no idea, which I think is bullshit. I still think it's bullshit.
yeah, even when
I think
people
maybe I'm one
don't
to
tell
get
you why they're
jealous
quitting,
or
there's usually
something.
a
Huh?
I said even when people don't specific oh my god, I can't use that word. When they're not specific as to why they are quitting, usually there's still some kind of like knowing as to why they did. Um,
Right.
I guess
And
I'm
I
trying
don't
to
have any.
is your main issue with the situation just the fact that it was abruptly ended, or the reason that he didn't specify a reason for it, or both? Like which part of this is affecting you the most?
I feel like he was probably still is the only male that I've known that's made me feel safe that way. But I still understood him as he's psychologist. He's just one thing God I can talk to and I feel comfortable with and all of this and he's gonna help me. Is I feel like he was this one person and then he turned into this individual that's probably deserves to be in Hollywood because he's really good at pretending he gives a shit. So much so that I believed it. Remember I said I need to see people and read them, and I felt like even more of an idiot because I felt like, how can I not see it, that he's not really that person, that he really doesn't give a shit. Um, he lied to me about where he was going, that he has his own practice, and he lied. He lied a couple of times, knowing how much I'm hurting, knowing everything. So it hurts too much, and it hurts continuously every moment, every day that goes by that I don't have that from him is destroying me. Because after everything I've been through, how could you do it that way with no reasoning to me? No explanation. And this is also after I have sent him emails where I know he's gotten it, where I explained, I got dark into it, like of how I think and see as myself, that he's just making that permanent in me. That what he's doing is
That view
traumatizing to
of
me. So how can that be right?
okay. So I'm going to say something, but I want to make it clear that I am in absolutely no way defending his actions as a therapist, as a man, as a person in general. I'm not defending what he's doing. But I do want to say one thing, and that's that people are not normally on a like far end spectrum of evil and good, right? And if, and it sounds like he did, if he was helping you and you were able to see not just a person, but like a man be this kind, sweet, compassionate person towards you, right? I don't want this ending to make you feel like, oh, it must have been fake, because that's not normally what it is, just as a human being, right? I know it's easy to take it that way because I've been in situations where I definitely take it that way, where I'm like, oh, everything you ever said was bullshit because what you're showing me now is who you really are. And that's kind of how what people say, right? Oh, well, everything up
Right,
front is
but
fake and it's the ending.
that's the way it's
Go ahead.
happened to me a lot of times. Either I was treated like shit, abused, or, there's one other person that was an actual relationship that I could think was just cruel in that way. I don't know what it's like to be in a or whether in a relationship or have a guy friend that doesn't hurt me in some way.
But you do know what it's like because you had that with him,
No, I don't, because
right?
I can't believe that with him
I,
though. I can't.
I'm
I
I'm
can't, because the
I'm not
way
talking about the
he's
ending,
still leaving it.
right? Like I'm not talking about how it ended. I'm not saying the way he ended it was right. It's not. Like as a professional standpoint, I would, I would want as a patient for someone to be like, I cannot see you no more because of this, this, and this. It's not like a therapist is someone you're extremely open to and they know your deepest, darkest fucking backstory, right? So I 100% agree that the way he ended it was wrong from a personal level and a professional level. I don't think it's okay, right? Like if my therapist was just like, "Hey, I'm gonna bounce," and dipped after seeing her for like 3 fucking years and telling her everything about my life, I'd be like, "What the fuck?" So I get it, and everything you're saying and feeling is 100% fucking valid, and I cannot pretend to know why he made that decision. But sometimes it's best to look at the whole of the relationship, whatever type of relationship it is, how that helped you, and not just focus on the shitty ending. Because I think a lot of time when we end any kind of relationship, whether it's professional, friendship, love, romantic, sexual, whatever it is, we look at the ending and go, that entire relationship was fucking shit. Right? But that's not normally true. So I know that it's not easy to not have any type of closure, to not know the reasoning, to wonder and guess if any of it was real or if they were the person that you thought that they were or that they showed you to be. But a lot of times in moving forward, we have to look at the relationship as a whole and not just how it ended and what that person taught you and made you feel in those good moments, not just the shitty ones. Because focusing purely on the ending or the horribleness of some situation is not helpful to yourself, right? Like there's always going to be some kind of shit situation in any relationship. No fucking relationship is perfect. And I know it's hard, but I don't even want to say you have to. It would be helpful if you looked at the compassion he showed you, the listening that he did for you, whatever positive feelings that he made you feel or sense, whatever it was that caused that transference to begin with, and focus on that. We can't guess, and even with, I can do a tarot reading and ask what was the reason, but even that won't be enough closure, I don't think, because you had genuine feelings for this person, because this person showed you genuine care. And that is not something that you're used to seeing from a man. And unfortunately, that's a lot of women in just the state of the world, right? But I don't want you to focus purely on that ending. Did it end right? No, most relationships don't end good. Otherwise there wouldn't be an ending. But that doesn't take away from the good that he showed you. It doesn't take away from that man that he was while he was helping you.
But it's thinking of how the person that I thought he was before. I don't know if I could do that because the person I thought he was before, the reason I felt so safe is because I thought there is no way in Hades, for those of you who don't know who Hades is, in hell. There's no other way of saying there's no way in hell, it's run by the devil or Hades, however you want to think about it, that this individual will ever do something to hurt me like that.
But that's an unrealistic expectation of anybody. Of anybody. You and I have been friends for years, right? Fucking
Well,
years.
yeah, but he's a psychologist. I have
Yep.
expectations. The
Hold on,
psychologist is
hold on.
not.
I get his profession. I get his profession. I get it. Yes, he should have more knowledge of the human mind and experience and all that. I get it. And it sounds like he was a good therapist for the most part, or a psychologist or whatever, because he helped you. Because if he didn't, you wouldn't be feeling the way you feel. You'd be like, fuck that motherfucker. I don't want to talk to him anyways. Right? But as in,
But this thing, I didn't get any help yet. I haven't really moved forward.
well, no, oh, no, you haven't moved forward because you're stuck on this ending portion of it. And do I think that he stopped treating you at a horrible time? Fuck yeah, bro. Like, fuck yeah. Like I said, your fucking feelings are valid. I agree. This was not a good time to be like, yo, I can't see you no more. This was a horrible time. But I don't know what's happening in his personal life. You know what I mean? He's married with his own practice. He may have a shit ton of reasons why he couldn't see you. And maybe as a professional or just as a man, because we all know that, men and women do have differences socially. Maybe he just wasn't comfortable telling you, hey, this and this is going on with my life, or even suggesting that anything was going on in his life. A lot of men are taught to always be this, brave, strong person, even admitting to someone that he's trying to help. Hey, I got a problem. I can't see you right now. May not have been in his scope of possibilities for himself at the time. We don't know. We weren't his therapist. You know what I mean? Don't let that end because we don't know. Don't let that end make you believe that all men are shit. Because he obviously had something good because you felt something you'd never felt before. You felt compassion and love and care from this individual. Don't let that ending take that shit away. Two things can be true at once. He doesn't only have to be an asshole. You know what I mean? He doesn't only have to be good. He's human. We're all both. I don't know one fucking person who has not been an asshole or not been good. We are all literally both. And I know it's hard because he's a therapist and he was a person in power, right? And you're like, the power dynamic was off. But he's still human. He was still a person. And he may not know how to deal with certain things. He's probably never, you don't know, maybe he's never had a patient who had feelings for him. Maybe he freaked out and was like, holy shit, I don't know what to do about this. And maybe he didn't want to tell you that. Because then that
And
means his
then,
own
but
feelings
you
are
go to
involved.
their website, and oh my God. And that, it's upsetting because even the way he describes himself is no topics off the table with me. I'm an open book, non-judgmental, all this stuff. And I'm like, well, that can't be true then. You know what I mean?
Now, his website may say, like no topic off the table. And that's still true. He still had that conversation with you, right? He still, listened to how you felt. maybe he was uncomfortable moving forward. That doesn't mean he's judging you for it. Right? Like, and I'm gonna give you an example. I recently, it's not a falling out, but like I had been talking to this person a while back, and they recently were trying to come back into my life, and I just wasn't. I'm just not in that like heads. Like I don't want to be with them, right? And there's nothing against that person. There's nothing against like them as a whole. We just don't connect or we just don't vibe. I don't remember the fucking point of this story. Sorry, my my notification. Shit, what was my
It's
point?
nearly I feel like it's nearly impossible for me to accept that he was who he was thought he was, because the only experiences in my entire life was being convinced that this person cared or that person cared for it to turn around and hurt me. That's all I
I
know.
I can
So
100%
you when you
relate
say
to
it,
that.
I can understand what you're saying. But the moment he hurt me was the moment he became like any other, because I was made to be convinced, you know, that others cared or whatever, for them to turn around and hurt me. And that's what he did.
I'm gonna ask you a super deep question, so feel free to not answer. I'm gonna ask you a super deep question, so like I said, feel free not to answer if you don't want to get into it on our fucking recording. Do you believe you are worthy of love?
No,
Do you don't love yourself?
no, I have no problem saying it because that's how used to it I am.
Bro, that makes me sad.
It
Uh,
makes me sad too.
for real. No,
And
no,
he
yeah,
knows
yeah, yeah.
this. He knew
But on
this.
the real though, hold on, hold on,
He
hold
knew
on.
this.
Just so you know, out of every person I have met in my fucking life, and I don't mean just like, I mean like everybody in passing, like fucking everyone, relationships, you are one of the people that I fucking love the most. I don't know
Thank
people
you.
like you to be so honest and open and just your fucking self. I I like to believe that I can be myself all the time, but the fact is I can't. There are very few people where I can be 100% myself and not feel judged, not be worried, not be fucking like anxious in any way. And you are that person for me. You are so fucking deserving, bro. So deserving of love, not just from others, but from yourself. And I know that's not like easy to hear when you're not used to it, but I want you to know I fucking love you, bro. Like straight up. Like that's like 100%. You are one of my favorite people in this entire fucking world. And I would be devastated without you.
Thank
So
you.
I just thought someone should fucking say that shit because that genuinely makes me sad because you deserve love. I fucking love you.
I love you too.
I know I'm easy to love though. Like
I just wish that the men in my life, whether professional or not, would not do this.
I think it's hard to
So
look at people's
I can't help
actions.
but feel that way though, because of everything.
No,
There's not one time.
I
I
get
thought
it.
he
I
was
get
the
it.
one time that I would be treated right, even if though it was on a professional level. Um, so how sad is it that Uh, he hurt me
I
in
think
ways more than I've been hurt by others physically. Oh, wait, you disappeared again. We'll probably end it soon. Thank you for listening. We hope you liked this episode.
you can follow us on YouTube, TikTok, and Spotify.
And Instagram, Audible, and Facebook.
Join us next time for more mischief. Okay, cool.
Yes.